Warm greetings. Welcome to another session on women in architecture, and it's a research on understanding the journey of women in the profession of built environment. Many women have taken this journey and charted their path in various ways, and we are trying to understand how they have redefined architecture, how they have delimited the very definition of it, and especially looking at their life journey, how they maneuvered, and what it is for them to be women in the profession. The research method is called autoethnography, which means it's their life journey and we are trying to write it to our pen in simple words. Through this research, we wish to come up with two outcomes. One is having this YouTube series, and the other one is writing a small coffee table book for the society at large to understand that these women, first of all, exist in the profession because it's a patriarchal profession, and importantly, their contribution to the built environment. So in principle, we are trying to acknowledge and appreciate the role of women in built environment. Today, we have Sonam Ambe from Ethos Foundation, and I'm very privileged to have this conversation with her. First of all, thank you, Sonam, for taking out time and trusting us and giving us the appointment right in the first go. So thanks a lot. And also, I seek your permission for doing the recording as well as to put it in the public domain later.
Yes,
And
please do.
we go ahead. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, Sona. So let me start with a very simple question, and I will take you back some years ago. It may sound many years, but how was it in your high school as a girl, and what brought you to the field of architecture? How did you join architecture? What was going on?
Right, so that's a very embarrassing tidbit, really. We in ICSE we have these electives, right? And we had technical drawing in the electives. And incidentally, in the 10th standard, I scored like 100 marks in technical drawing. So my mother was like, "Arey, she's good at engineering drawing. We should make her an architect." And I was like, "Yeah," because my father has this is very artistic in his expressions in the works that he puts out. And then in my 4th standard, I completely turned him off by being over enthusiastic about art. And that over enthusiasm continued. Like I would not stop with one. I would say I'd do more. Like even when he wanted to do a glass painting for the house before, and he brought all the materials before he sat and did it, I had completed it all before him. And he used to get so annoyed and angry at me for taking away that pleasure from him. But that's something that always was exciting for me. So I thought engineering, no, for sure. So if technical drawing and art can come together, then that's architecture. And that's how I got into architecture.
So from home, it was like smooth ride into the architecture college
Yes,
then.
yes.
Very good. But I'm quite interested and intrigued to understand that your parents were aware about it, which is quite, already an edge in the
Mm.
society because our profession is not really understood by many, many people.
Mm.
So let me just now come to your undergraduate and postgraduate immediately after that. Um, how was it in architecture school? I understand that teachers don't make this discrimination between girl and boy, and at least it did not happen in my case. Uh, but what was it in your situation, and did you really feel during the college days that it is different to be a girl in the profession or woman in the profession, or you were just unaware or indifferent to this whole idea? What was going on? Or maybe you can share it with some incidents and somebody said this or you realized it. How was it?
So the fact that I am a woman in the profession uh, never struck me
Mm-hmm.
and has still not to date
Same.
struck me in the sense that I don't take it as a drawback or as a failure. It was only when I really got into my post graduation, and maybe that is when I will talk about it more, is when I realized that yes, this is a certain privilege in my mind, in my upbringing, in this in the surroundings or the environmental context, the people that I'm around with more often, that it doesn't strike out or come across that evidently. And so to talk to you about my college days, I would give everything that I am right now to three individuals.
Okay.
Two of them are men, and one of them is a very, very strong woman. Her name is Parul Kumtha. She was our faculty and at JJ College of Architecture, and a phenomenal personality. And I generally think that, you know, teachers and mentor, the other two are Mustansir Dalvi, who's just recently retired from JJ, and Professor Yashwant Pitkar, who's also retired from JJ, sadly. So the new generation is not going to see the way, like, not going to have the pleasure of being molded as individuals, as the three of them did. They had very three distinct personalities, and they were not someone who would follow the tradition. They would ask questions, and they were always curious. And you know, like our first history class with Mustansir Dalvi, he just picked up the stone in a JJ campus and said that this is older than you, older than me, older than the building, older than everything that you see around. And that is how architecture should begin. It should begin with humility for for the things
Which
around us.
is so much missing in the profession.
And Parul Kumtha was outright, she would question religion, she would question politics, she would question things that are happening around you. And it kind of made you, you know, not submissive. And maybe that as a girl studying architecture, or maybe that as even as an architect studying architecture, it made you question the systems. And that is what built us. And Yashwant Pitkar would just make fun of everything. So you had that pleasure of humor, of taking things lightly around when things are happening. And the three of them were a very good combination, at least for me personally, to define and pick out what kind of an individual I want to be. And I strongly believe that personality building is what generally happens in after your 10th and 12th, because that is when you are conscious enough to have opinions based on facts and not things that are taught to you in college because they were in schools, because they were in your textbook. And none, the three of them, or even at JJ, I never felt that people discriminated because of gender or because of who, maybe the family background, or none of those were really matters that we faced at JJ. It was pretty. It was in government school, so only those who had the merit of work actually joined in. So you were surrounded by people of varied economic strata. It was a government school where people from Jammu and Kashmir, Northeast, and all parts of the country had the right to seat. And so we were always surrounded by a lot of cultural discussions, a lot of grassroots discussions about what happens in their villages, in our places. So as a matter of fact, I've never stepped out of Mumbai for education. My schooling has been in Mumbai. My education with graduation has been in JJ, and then I moved to post graduation in IIT Bombay. So it's all very Mumbai centric. But the both these educational foundations, you know, gave opportunities to go and study in Italy, to go and do some things in other parts of the country. So those kind of experiences we've had, but it's all based out of Mumbai. And Mumbai as such is also like, sometimes I think that my personality is also very much driven by Mumbai. So because Mumbai does not identify gender as strongly as any other city, is why, to answer your question, I really did not see gender as I see it right now until I joined IIT Bombay.
IIT has serious gender skewedness. I mean, in terms of women participation or presence in the campus.
Hmm.
I mean, I have been teaching there in the past, and it looks quite skewed when you go to a classroom and you see five girls sitting in one corner, and especially in bachelor's and all, it is more. Although in PhD and masters, things get a little bit,
Hmm.
balanced in a
Yeah,
way. And there are now serious efforts to also bring some balance into it.
correct.
So,
Correct. Because
so
in JJ, I remember we had 44 girls and 22 boys. So if anything,
so in
only it's the boys.
architecture,
Yeah.
architecture, it is getting completely opposite. Now,
Hmm.
actually, that brings a very interesting and important question for us, because as far as statistics of architecture school shows, actually girls and boys are equally numbered.
Hmm.
you know so it's about, once they graduate, where are their footprints you know
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, and unfortunately, most of the time when we define who is an architect, it is limited to people who practice building buildings.
Hmm.
And this was also one of the starting point of my research as well, because when I was doing background work or desk study for this research, I realized that many women have diversified into various fields of built environment, and that's where I also like to call it a built environment more than architecture, because then there is a very very narrow vision of what architecture or who is architect. So, I think when we look at women after graduation, and when we start talking about the profession, it automatically starts looking more male dominated, because it's the building architect or
Hmm.
architecture. So I just need to understand from you, when you finished your education, what kind of things were going on in your head? Now I understand that gender never struck you, but because it's a gender study or woman study, I don't say it as a gender study, because then men studies also gender studies. But just to understand from you, what was going on in your head, what will you do next? I'm sure it's not about being woman or man or other gender for that matter. It's a very natural phenomena. When you're finishing your studies, you
Hmm.
would like to know what next and all, what was in the family, what was in your head, आगे क्या करना है.
Hmm. Hmm.
And how did you take those choices in the initial years?
Hmm. Hmm. So I will first correct myself because you just you said that gender never struck me. That's not the case. I think I need to change what I said earlier to gender was never I was naive enough
Yeah,
not to
I think that's
understand.
a very honest confession. Even I did not realize until the age of 40 that
Hmm.
I'm really affected being a woman,
Yeah.
to be honest.
It was only that's why I said now it was only in IIT Bombay that I really understood the things about gender. So since your question, the last question talked about architecture in at JJ in undergraduation is why I thought I'll respond only
Huh.
to it. But the moment I got out of architecture, I'll be really frank. I was phenomenal at observation skills. So I would look
Huh.
at things and I can, kind of predict what has happened here before and things like that. Like you would watch any NCIS or any Bones or any of those, investigative serials, and and I could literally sit there and predict that this is who
So what is going
the
to
person
happen
is.
afterwards also?
Exactly. And my friends and my husband now is just gets so annoyed. She's like, just Sonam, put yourself on mute. Please watch it
don't
carefully.
don't spoil the climax.
Exactly. So when I got out of architecture, no, I did some forensic science. Because
Wow.
I was like, चल ना explore करते हैं क्या होगा, what it means and things like that. And then I joined Xavier's College, that too in Mumbai. Like my education is all centered around
Interesting.
Mumbai.
I'm getting very interested, because as I was saying, women are diversifying. They took risk in their life actually,
Hmm.
for whatever reason. But my study shows that
Hmm. Hmm.
they did not do the conventional path of life.
Yeah, yeah. So forensics kiya, then we had a very small stint and like an internship with Mumbai Police, and we
Wow.
explored. ऐसा मतलब बोला हाँ लाइव केस है, and we were like, oh इतना slow जाता
You want to do it like TV serial then?
exactly. And then we thought, okay, thoda फिर then maybe this is not something that I will enjoy doing
Mhm.
for the rest of my life. And then what is the use of the 5 years that I've put into architecture? Just because, you get these hormonal surges once in a while, and you're like, no, kuch to alag karna hai. Right? And that is when I really started putting a lot of time in thinking about
Mhm.
life in general. So what happened at the time was I started buying a few books which helped me maybe understand the Indian Constitution, understand
Mhm.
India's history through architecture, as well as how communities were built, evolved, and things like that.
Mhm.
And that is when I realized that architecture, although opens you up in so many ways, because I
Mhm.
would say that currently, at the moment, architecture is the only field in all disciplines which does not have designated textbooks,
I agree.
which says that the curriculum hai and the college and the teacher who's teaching you can
Mhm.
decide. And you yourself, while you're doing your
Mhm.
research, your studies, your book studies, and whatnot, can decide what it is that you want to know more about.
Mhm.
That kind of changed me as a in a way that I when I did all of these researches, there was also a point when I was like, मैं IAS करूँ क्या? ये सब तो मैंने पढ़ लिया है, कौन बनेगा करोड़पति में भी थोड़े थोड़े जवाब आ जाते हैं. Right, so that 1 year of break, now I worked with Parul Kumtha in her
Mm.
NGO. It's
Mm.
called Nagar, and it looked at open spaces in
Oh,
Mumbai.
yes, I'm aware of it.
And then from there, I also started, studying a little bit about the past, politics, started to
Mhm.
understand why there was what happened during Indian partition and how it still continues to affect us even to date. The
Mm.
decisions that were taken by three
Oh,
individuals. Right? And I was like, okay, so everything that you think about and action out actually has a repercussion for such a long time, especially
Mhm.
when it's done in politics, if it's done in innovation, if
Mm.
it's done through when the scientist who decided to put lead inside petrol put it,
Mhm.
he just wanted to stop that thumb sound that comes in engines when it's kind of pumping in, and adding lead helped it, but adding lead also burned down the
Yes,
environment.
yes,
He
created
never
another
thought of it.
serious problem.
Exactly. When the plumbers in the Roman civilization decided to use plumbum, which is lead, which is right now related to lead poisoning, in their
Mhm.
entire plumbing aqueducts and services, they did not realize that will kill the civilization.
Yes.
They did it as innovation. So that was the time when I realized that small things, small
Mm.
opinions, and everything that you do right now, no matter how trivial it may
Yes.
seem to you right now, matters.
Yes.
And
Yes.
hence I thought that I don't know enough about life. So I joined the MPhil system,
Mhm.
which is right now, kind of after the whole JNU incident, I think the government even banned MPhil out. They phased it out. But at that time, MPhil was Masters in Philosophy in Planning and Development.
Mhm.
And there was the IDC, which was the Industrial Design Center,
Yes, I'm
my mentor
aware. Hmm.
where my mentor was Professor Uday Atwankar.
Hmm.
And it was like a good mix because you have everything beautiful at IIT Bombay. You could do it with your own base, which is architecture.
Yes.
I studied environmental economics, environmental psychology. I studied literature. I studied politics. I got into, I had electives with the business school to understand enterprise and entrepreneurial journey. I had sessions with CUs and CSRE where I understood research engineering from GIS and satellite imaging and those perspectives, and I used all of it into my post-graduation thesis. Now, this is where I will answer your question as to when was the time that gender really struck me. Like what, because this was the journey and after post-graduation. It was during my thesis that I went out to slums in Mumbai. Many
Hmm.
of those who are outside of Mumbai would identify with Dharavi being
Hmm.
the of Mumbai. But Dharavi is very enterprising. There are many others which are not.
Absolutely. Hmm.
And those which are not are maybe like a 70% population of the rest
Hmm.
of the country. 60% of the city lives in slums. And
Yes.
these are informal setups. And that was when I decided that maybe I need not continue to live. Okay, so only for the thrill of things, I decided not to stay with my family. I said, hostel mein to rehna padega. So I went and stayed in IIT Bombay hostel, and it was good because the hostel was really centrally placed in the city. So I
Hmm.
could go to any slum pockets, live, interact with them. And I realized that many a time my interactions happen only with women,
Hmm.
and they don't really happen with the men of the household. And then I asked them that who takes design decisions, because they are the ones who are mostly in the house. The men would
Hmm.
leave early in the morning and they would come back in later.
More as laborers and
Correct.
staff. Hmm.
And they would, the women would be involved in some Mahila Gruha Udyog, and they would
Hmm.
be
Hmm. Hmm.
at home, or maybe helping with
Yeah.
home shop setup that they would have. And many a time the women came back and said that the men would decide. And I asked,
Hmm.
but you live in the house more.
Hmm.
You spend most time. Your children spend most time. He would not understand. He would not empathize. He would not even, kind of make sense of things. Why,
Hmm.
why, why, why would you allow him to decide things for you, which
Hmm.
are here related, like design decisions related to your interior realignment, decoration, or any of those? Then we started asking them a little more serious questions. That what happens during puberty? How
Hmm.
do women respond to those spaces when they strike puberty? Because they're very
Hmm.
tightly knit spaces.
Yes.
How do men respond to those spaces when
Hmm.
they strike puberty?
Hmm.
Right? Do you have instances of peeping toms?
Hmm.
Because it's very easy to peep, right?
Yes.
And it the my whole entire thesis was to put together a flowchart of understanding tight spaces and their
Hmm.
economical upgradation or financial
Hmm.
upgradation. What happens when someone gets married?
Hmm.
A new member is added to the family. How do you accommodate them in a small space like this?
Yes.
Or do you change and alter your decisions on getting married depending on the
The
current
spaces.
space
Hmm.
that you have, or do you kind of move out? And that was when I really started doing gender studies.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I did my master's with the humanities and social sciences department, and I had this I'm blessed with brilliant mentors.
Hmm. That is extremely important, huh?
It's very important because they change the way in which you think. And
Hmm.
they in like the influence of mentors in my life. I would say that I am. There are so many variables now. Many people give their parents their credit to who they are. My parents have done their bit, and they're really genuinely really nice people. But my personality is only because of who my mentors were and the
Yeah.
conversations that we had with them. Dr. Parthasarthi at IIT Bombay has been the most kind, empathetic person I have come across till date, who understands sociology and the social sciences in such a like a complex system, and is able to simplify it for you. That you know
Hmm.
what, when you're studying this, XYZ is complex. Leave it on the side. They may lead to outliers. Outliers are exciting in life, but they
Yes.
are not the trend. So then
Hmm.
how do you define your variables? How do you work on your studies? How do you make sure that what you are saying is what everybody else, likes, appreciates, understands?
Believes, yeah, things, huh?
And how do you then work for people overall?
Hmm.
And that is where I think gender studies was, strongly brought into my psyche or my conscious because of the first-hand interactions that I've
Hmm.
had with people. But still, I had not understood the role of gender in the society because it did not affect me personally. It did not
Yes,
affect me that I was
I
a man
think,
or a woman until I got married. And then things started, like you could clearly see there were gender roles that are followed in households.
hmm, hmm.
And thankfully, right now, 10 years after getting married, I can say that we have deshelled all the gender and I stay with my in-laws. And I
Hmm,
give them the credit for being that open-minded, for understanding those things. And my in-laws have they've had two sons. They've
hmm,
not had daughters. So that kind of love that comes to you when you have your own daughter and you can empathize and say, oh, this is how my daughter-in-law would be thinking because I have a daughter and she's going through something like that. That did not happen for my in-laws.
hmm,
But right now, 10 years down the line, I can 100% say that although I also have a son, but if they would have had the daughter, they're treating the son as if it's a daughter. They're making him
hmm,
do household things. They're making him go inside and encouraging him to go inside the kitchen and start, kind of being independent in that sense. And that is kind of breaking his barrier. Like when he says, I like blue, because everybody in
hmm,
his class likes blue, or every boy in his class likes blue. Then the questions about why pink kyun nahi pasand? Then his father will
hmm.
say, I am going to wear everything pink on your birthday, right? So there are these small things that matter in life that
Hmm,
sometimes discredit. हाँ छोड़ना जाने दे, नहीं
hmm.
फर्क पड़ता. But it helps to stick to your ground and fight for those things and
Absolutely. Yes.
request.
Ask once. Yes, it's very important actually asking and making the. I think asking itself makes many people realize the need
Negotiate.
negotiate.
नहीं
you,
इतना नहीं होगा ओके
we
चलो
have
इतना कर लेंगे ना.
we have lot more to discuss outside this conversation as well when you talked about your interest in politics and how things are and also your engagement with women, vulnerable women in the slums and all. We will talk about it more some other time. I want to bring back to your life when you said that yes, things started changing when you got married, and of course that. And I really like the way you are interacting and giving credits to everyone who made who influenced your life and to large extent shaped you who you are today. And so I want to understand from you like how do you now balance your everyday life being a professional woman, mother, daughter-in-law, wife, and also mentors to many other people now. So how is it? I mean, having all these roles put together, and how is your day looking like these days? I mean, I can imagine, but few things here and there with more women, but it is still to put it on record.
Right, right. So, I think to understand what happened, what I do right now, you may have to go back 5 to 7 years in
Hmm.
time. And I just feel that since this is the forum where we want both men and women to understand and take back some things from these auto
Yes.
biographies, is to um, appreciate the times change. Who you are as a child, as a young adult,
Yes.
as the adult who is earning and on their own, as an adult who now gets married, lives with a family, lives without a family, as an adult who has a child and that responsibility, as the child who grows old, who's out of the house, as retiring adult, old age, whatever ye, and then people who then later become dependents.
Hmm.
There's no one reaction or response. The
Of
question that you
course.
asked me, how is life right now, is because you've come to me in a time which is 10 years after marriage and 7 years after having a kid, that I can say this is how things are for me.
Hmm.
But the reason why I want to go back 6 years before is because I want to talk about the very first time that I decided. This was when I delivered Navya, my son.
Hmm.
And it was the very first time that I decided that, I cannot continue to enjoy the um, uh, uh, enjoy the beauty of working professionally while also enjoying the beauty which I've created, my child.
Yes, yes.
And so work from home seemed like the only possible option for me. And incidentally, Ethos, which is the organization that I work with right now, Geeta Balakrishnan, had put out an advertisement for hiring. And I applied to Ethos. And like I said, if all the other mentors and individuals in my life, my family, my mother-in-law, my husband, my son, they've influenced my personality and they've changed me. But I have to give 40% of credit of changing me to Geeta Balakrishnan. Because the
Mhm.
way in which she thinks minutely about the repercussions of even the choice of a word
Mm.
put on a paper, that the moment you say can you, or if you say may you,
May you.
yeah,
Yes.
it sounds different to you, right? And it hence that changes the tone of the conversation that we are having. So that credit I give to Geeta, because I feel that Geeta is a very strong-headed power
Yes.
mentor to be under. And uh, I just feel that everybody should have spent at least some time with Geeta, like to get something out of what something out of the vast experience of life that she has. Because there is not one person that who can confidently say they have touched and interacted with so many architects since the last 20 years. She has
Mm.
walked on ground, on foot, and interacted with laypersons, with society, talked about architecture. And that brings in another level of humility to
Mm.
life in general. So working right now with Ethos, with Foundation, and with Geeta is a tough nut,
I
because
can imagine.
because you have to do the right thing, you have to say the right thing, and you have to make the right impact in the most inclusive ways that are
Mm.
possible. Sometimes we exclude through our graphics, sometimes we
Yes.
exclude through our choice of words, sometimes
Yes.
we just exclude because we are busy.
Yes. And
Right?
we
And
probably unconsciously.
it comes in very unconsciously. But working with Geeta, you cannot afford to exclude.
Mm.
And that is how my work life at Ethos right now is. It is very hectic, busy. We are working on beautiful concepts and ideas with construction workers, with projects on
Yes.
inclusivity, and working for persons with disability, those which are both visible disabilities as well as invisible disabilities. And we are working on ASEDGE, which is the e-learning portal of Ethos. So we've
Mm.
created close to 200 odd courses with experts across India and across the globe. We've
Mm.
had people from all walks of life, including those in India, Pakistan. The South Indian region has been well represented with architects coming in and talking about what they do the best. And
Yes.
that brings joy
Yes.
on an everyday basis, that these this is how you are connecting students to not just learning the process of architecture, but also to understand the difference between good and sustainable practices in architecture. So
Absolutely.
the day begins at 9, and it extends till 5:30 or 6. And if there is need be, we extend even more. But it is done out of a lot of compassion for the cause. And
I
Ethos
can
Foundation
so
has,
much relate.
and it has this vertical called ARCOS under it. It has two verticals. One is Breathe, which looks at CPR and those skills. And the second one is ARCOS. And it actually stands for Architects for a Cause, and for the cause of architecture. It also
Yeah.
sounds like our cause together.
Yes.
That becomes a strong motivation to do what we do.
Interesting, very interesting. So now let me understand from you that because you are doing some heavy research, and I think most of it goes in the intangible side of it, because many people do not realize even in the profession, let alone be in society at large. What do you think are kind of a difference if women or a man is engaging in some kind of design approach, let's say in your field of work, with vulnerable community or differently abled people, uh, and also what do you think is the difference in the business approach of a woman taking up a cause or a man taking up a business or entrepreneur? How do you see it with your experience?
Hmm. Mansi, do you know about neuroplasticity?
Yes,
Neuroplasticity is basically your brain can change, alter, train depending on the experiences that you have in life.
yes.
Okay. So I have had men strongly fight for women and women's rights.
Very good.
And I have had women who are conservative enough to not understand that they are pushing down their own happiness and their own, like
Clan, clan.
plans in life, just because they're not changing how they're thinking. So, to answer your question, no, I do not see that men and women can do things differently. I think
Okay.
that it depends on who you are as a person and the experiences that you've had in life that changes your approach to life. There have been
Mhm.
men, like I said earlier, who would
Yes.
be much better than me when it comes to talking about inclusive and women-based and gender-based. And I
Mhm.
have to appreciate that. I have to
Of
acknowledge that,
course.
that even with this as a background, you still with your upbringing, with the gender societal norms that come to you, that you're still open to to something that you are not going to be benefited by in the end. And hence, I don't feel that even in design processes, women design better and men don't design. It all depends on who you are as a person. And if the moment you want to, kind of change how you're thinking, it's just like whether you scroll on Instagram and you look at those funny videos, or you decide to actually go on to YouTube or maybe Sage and come on to listen to what we have to talk and say about good practices in architecture. It will change you.
Yes,
Just,
absolutely.
just listening to that thing will change you. So if it has changed you, it doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman, at least to certain extent. And then, of
Yes,
course, later there are a lot of personal experiences that come with being a woman. That cannot be negated as well. I cannot say
yes,
that it's all equal, because
yes,
the man will never come with those experiences because how our society functions. But
yes.
I'm always a strong believer of like my in-laws would say, pehle ka zamana. So beautiful, so nice. I was like, हाँ रखो पर्दा, मैं जाती हूँ सती after my husband dies. Like, so don't talk to me about pehle ka zamana, because I'm happy for this current generation who has fathers who are involved, and there
Yes,
are more fathers who are involved in their upbringing, who have mothers who are, working at office, also helping at homes, who have fathers who are helping at homes, who are taught to, kind of not, although right now my son is also in the blue and the pink world, but to see all the shades
yes,
that all of us come in. And I feel this younger generation is a little more kind and
yes.
informed
I agree with you.
than we are. Of course, they're good
Mm.
at technology and all of those things is all right. But I feel that if you speak with them, they're so much more kinder than who we were, because we were raised with, like, as a dogmas. This is good. This is
Lot
really,
of prejudices, with
yes.
lot of prejudices. I think it is to do with our generation parents also, because we are more exposed, and then technology is doing rest of it. Even children are directly exposed to a lot of things without even we inculcating those knowledge and habits.
Hmm.
So they can take some decisions on by themselves as well. you know.
So, so, so the reason why I'm saying this is because I don't want to want people to think that gender has any influence on good design, or gender
Yeah.
has any influence on good thinking. Even if
Hmm.
you're of another gender, which is 50% of the population,
Yes.
you you
Absolutely.
you can still change. You can
Yes.
still,
Absolutely.
kind of be a little more humble, be a little more informed, And all of us together as a community can make a difference.
Absolutely. So, just to reiterate the second part of the question, do you think women are running businesses or profession differently? So, what, the business approach, are they different again between how men handle any business or foundation? Let's say in your case, it is NGO. What kind of difference do you see when running an office is concerned, or being part of the office is concerned? As a
Mm.
man or woman, do you see any difference, or again it's more about persons? I
Yeah.
completely agree with you that of course every individual matters, but as a researcher, when I'm looking at a pattern, I do
Mm.
see a difference. You
Mm.
know, you
Mm.
may be talking, of course, about your life experience and other experiences around you, but drawing patterns definitely show difference, and that is why we have this question.
Correct.
You
No,
know,
no, you're absolutely right. And I'm not negating your research.
of
I'm
course,
not
no, no,
saying
no, I understand.
no, but I'm saying that there is a possibility that everyone can
Of
actually
course,
come on a equal
yes.
path. But coming to your question about enterprise, see, sadly, I do not have any personal experiences to share here, because all the people whom I've worked with till now have been women. Even when I
Hmm.
did my stint at Anjuman Islam, when I was a faculty, my HO, my principal, my HOD was still a woman. So I've not really interacted with men who are leaders on a day-to-day
Hmm.
basis. But Geeta always goes back to all of her friends who are of different gender backgrounds to to help and seek guidance on, how we could host ethos differently, host ASET differently, put it out there in a different way. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And I do see a difference, because
Hmm.
I think the men are more pragmatic, and they're like, if you do X, Y, Z, whatever, this is the inflow and this is the outflow. And this is how a business is run.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, uh, Women generally, okay, not women. I generally would look at, अच्छा ये किया ना तो इससे इसको फायदा होगा, उसको फायदा होगा, ये अच्छा हुआ, वो अच्छा हुआ, वो अच्छा हुआ, हाँ ठीक है. अच्छा ब्रेक इवन नहीं हो रहा है क्या? Oh my God, what do I do about it right now?
We have too many things here and there, and probably clarity, and also too many things we want to incorporate.
Yeah, but so which is why, but if you look at Geeta, she's very clear, she's very pragmatic. Like all these years for ASET, I used to work on the plans. And
Hmm.
I say कि ये ASET का plan है, and this is how the income would work, and this is how the outflow would work, and these are the scholarships that we could give out for free, and these are the ones that we will have to get, otherwise there's no running of ASET and this. And then this year, Geeta said, Sonam, just take a pause. I will do the plan for you. And she did it so as a practically, she was like, how many hours of time does anyone put into this project? How many what is the income that you will get from it? Which are the projects that you can afford to be on break even? Which are the projects that you cannot? You have to make money from it, otherwise how are you going to have a well-oiled system for it? So although you want to look at it from the perspective of a social enterprise, so the discussions we are having is not from a purely for-profit enterprise. It's a social enterprise. Hence, it's a different run. So I again think that um it's possible that more men would focus more on the profits of things, because
For profit.
I see how my husband runs his organization and his company. He's an architect, and
Hmm.
he would upfront go to a client, and the client says that, oh, in my area Nangal में तो 1% पे काम करते हैं आर्किटेक्ट. तुम मुंबई से बुला रहे हो और नंगल का रेट दे रहे हो तो नहीं चलेगा. And he's okay with kind of telling a client नहीं नहीं करते हैं. And I, on the other hand, get very excited about the opportunity of doing something interesting and exciting. And whether the finances work or not, I'll say, हाँ ठीक है, I'll burn the midnight oil and I'll
Yeah.
work. But
And
ये
also burn my pocket.
हाँ, correct, and I burn my pocket, right? But which is why I think it could. I may not be the best person to talk about this, because I will tell you things that I have experienced. I've not done a
Of
research on
course.
things. these
Of
things.
course, but we are here to understand your experience. So you do see a difference in the way we approach. I mean, you approach
In
and
my
how
approach,
others
but I
approach
would say
around.
Geeta is not.
Yes, of course.
So then whether, and there are some like Rasya and Nikita who are also from ethos, they would not think like me. They would look at it
Of
very
course.
differently. And it's, I don't know. It's the research that you did.
No, I mean you answered what I was looking for, so that's okay. So just to understand, mhm, you have answered actually some of my questions in advance also, which makes it quite easy for me to have this communication with you. Such as we have questions on giving examples of situations where you thought that being woman was an opportunity. So likewise, I would also like to understand from you, had there been any situations in life where you felt that being woman was a challenge in this particular situation? Professionally, of course, we are talking about it. So both, I mean, I have this question like giving us some examples of situations where you felt that, oh, in this situation, being woman was a great thing, or in this situation, being woman was really challenging to get across. So, would you like to share any such experience you had in your career?
Okay. Being a woman has helped me वाले situation अब तक आ नहीं रहा है, आएगा तो but
See, that already says a lot, huh?
no, मतलब ऐसा नहीं है that I'm sure that there have been
Of course.
some instances. It's not coming to me right now is all I'm saying. क्योंकि
Oh,
okay,
you mean by memory it is
by
not
memory
coming
it's
to
not
you?
coming to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Because I'm sure that there would be a bias for
there
for
are, by
the
the
person I'm
way, many
interacting with.
situations.
That for the person that I'm interacting with, and I may not have picked up on that bias.
Yes, you may have
I
not
may
have
have just said, मैं
identified
तो
it
smart
also.
हूँ इसके लिए मुझे मिला.
Hmm.
Maybe it is because मैं तो woman हूँ इसके लिए मुझे मिला. I don't know. That's all.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. That I
Yeah.
may not have picked up on that bias, and it's not coming to me still. But things, what are the ways? What are the times when I have felt that it is difficult to be the woman? Is the
Hmm.
opportunity that nature has given us to
Hmm.
raise a child inside our stomach, in the uterus, and be responsible for its life at least for the next 1 year
Of
after
course.
it's out, right? And that opportunity comes with a lot of responsibility. And no matter how much the father says, हाँ तू सो जा, मैं रात को देख लूंगा. I'm like, तेरे पास boobs नहीं है, तू नहीं काम कर सकता जो मुझे करना है. Right? So there are these instances when which are not related to the profession yet, where I've thought that it has changed who I was. Like, it's possible that if I was the man in the relationship and my husband was the woman, maybe I would be going out and practicing. It was only because I decided, oh, बच्चे के साथ रह भी सकते हैं, work from home भी हो सकता है, right? And I took that decision of joining in ethos. Could also be a gender bias.
Taking a self
For my,
responsibility of the child or
correct.
for yourself.
In my own head. मैं बोला नहीं, फिर तो ये पूरा टाइम दादी के साथ रहेगा, फिर मेरा कनेक्शन कैसे जाएगा, फिर दादी के संस्कार मिलेंगे, फिर मैं जो इतना पढ़ी लिखी हूँ उसका संस्कार किधर मिला बच्चे को. So I'm looking at it from that maybe it is there in my head then, like now that I'm talking to you.
Subconsciously,
Huh.
subconsciously. I mean, anyway, these interactions are more reflections, by the way. Huh? So, and that's fine. I mean, because see, interactions with all of you are also to bring to young girls, because everybody is going to go through this journey of life. We all are going through little bit here and there, but there are some things which are social, culturally embedded, which is, of course, patriarchy is heavy, and then the profession itself has patriarchy, which is heavy. So it is just
It's
to understand
stigma.
how we maneuver through it and still make our happy life or career or whatever,
Yeah.
make choices in lives
Yeah.
unconsciously or consciously. It's just that the question is coming to you now, so you have to think about it and reflect, because we are not constantly thinking, okay, I'm girl, so I have to do this, or I'm woman. Of course not. We don't do it like that, but just reflecting upon it. So,
And the second time that it happens is, which happens every month, is when I have periods.
of course.
Because I turned into a heroine with
Huh.
too many dramas.
I can imagine that. Hmm.
And like I've ended up with fights with people in office, at home, and everyone else, because that is how my hormones are. Like
Hmm.
I can blame it on the hormones, and I can say that they are making me all this moody. But I just wish that life was that straight arch curve and not those high notes that
But
strike
then
and stand.
it's boring life. So,
Yeah, and
but
I
I
wouldn't
think
say my
that's
husband's
also
life is boring. It's very easy to interact with my husband
huh.
because मतलब throughout ये point है, ये opinion है, final. सोनम के साथ interaction मतलब अच्छा, which time of the month is it? This will, whether she wants to eat momos or not depends on
on her day of the month.
exactly. तो वो मुझे कभी कभी लगता है कि अगर ये बैगेज नहीं होता था थोड़ा, तो लाइफ में have
But
been a
that's
little
about being woman.
exactly.
We have the zing
There
thing
are
in
people who
life.
feel very proud of that is why that is who I am physiologically and physically, and yeah. Sometimes I just feel that I may hurt people lesser had if I would not be in those mood swings. Like I am aware of what I do, but it just comes out like
Yeah, and
it's just
other way is, I have tried it in my middle career, life and careers. I would go to places and just announce that, guys or girls, I am in this state of these 4 days.
yeah.
Bear with me. I mean, you just put a disclaimer in advance, and then whatever happens, it goes in the bracket of disclaimer. So, and I think it is also about accommodation by the people around. It's just that if they are not informed, it comes as a shock to them.
Mm.
Why my behavior suddenly changed from yesterday to today. So, and
Correct.
that was a learning for me as well to realize that it's good to inform people, because
Nice.
we don't discuss about it, and then it becomes like, इसको क्या हो गया आजकल तो अच्छी खासी थी,
Correct.
something like that.
Hmm.
So it makes it easier informing people. Just to understand from you and out of curiosity, do you think there is might be a difference in life if your spouse is from the same profession or other profession? Will that change the whole dynamics of being woman in the profession? So having a same profession husband or not having a same profession spouse, do you think life would be different? Or just imagining, not that I would really like you to think in that way, but maybe acquaintances who have different combinations, because that also we are trying to capture. How does it really make a difference to have same profession spouse or different profession? And this actually came out from the fact that many famous male architects have their counterparts as women architects, and they are not known to the society. And that's quite actually one of the reasons why I started doing research and got interested in the subject is this very matter.
They're
So
not, maybe they're
do
not
you
known
think it
that
makes a
it
difference?
doesn't matter to them.
Of course, there may be many reasons, but as I said, as a researcher, I have to draw myself out of the subject and look at the pattern. So I'm looking at the pattern, of course, reflecting from my own life and career, and also reflecting from all of you respondents' life and career. But just to understand from you, do you think life would be different for a woman to have a same profession spouse or a different profession spouse? What is your take on that?
Yeah, to have a spouse in the same profession helps because they understand the kind of work that you're doing. But in my case, although he's from the same profession, he's practicing, quote unquote, going out there and building, and I am practicing in terms of academics and enterprise and other
Hmm.
things. So the execution of the profession is different.
Absolutely.
The mediums are very, very different. So
Approach is different.
I
Approach
cannot
is
say that
different.
he understands what I'm doing,
Hmm.
but he understands, and I can have conversations with him.
Hmm. So we
Of
share
course,
vocabulary.
we
I mean,
share
I
the
also
vocabulary.
have, by the way, similar situation. So,
Very nice. So that helps you connect with your spouse. I have had, I won't take names, but I have had brilliant girls being married to computer engineers, but the computer engineer was also interested in architecture.
Hmm.
Would go to a place, understand its history, understand the built environment, feel the difference in lighting and other things, and then say, oh, this is ambient, oh, this is daylight. And it changes my mood, and could talk and have a conversation on those things. I think when you're talking about spouses, the first thing that needs to be brought out is how do you connect on a day-to-day basis? Do you discuss tasks? आज बच्चे को स्कूल में ये करना है, आज हम लोगों को कबर्ड साफ करना है, आज हम लोगों को ये करना है. Or do you discuss about life? Do you discuss about dreams? Do you discuss about things that are happening around? So that is one thing that helps, having an architect alongside as a partner, because you have the same things to discuss, talk about, feel happy about, feel excited about, criticize, or have arguments on ye kya bakwas hai.
And also having common acquaintances so we can.
Yes, bilkul. But at the same time, I gave you this example of a friend. Her husband was also equally interested in architecture, even if he's not from the profession. And that is a good scene as well. There are cases where the husband is not from architecture. The family doesn't know anything about architecture. The woman steps out practicing architecture. And इतना टाइम बाहर क्यों रहती है, लड़कों के साथ घूमती क्यों है? I'm like, site है, construction workers है, you can't call them लड़के. Right? So there are these
And we are
situations.
noticing those things, by the way.
Hmm.
These are all general observations we have to capture.
Correct.
See.
So it all depends. Matlab, had the family sat down and spoken with her and asked her about her career. अच्छा architect हो, करते क्या हो? कैसे होता है design? Her then, what are the things that you do on a daily basis? Why is it required for you to not just send out drawings to the site, but actually go to the site? Why is it important to travel? Ask those questions. And I'm sure that the whole weight of gender will then start reducing,
Or
because
you inform from your side,
you
just
inform
like
from
we
your side.
discussed.
Correct.
I
So
think a lot of things can be understood and resolved if communication is, is strong.
correct. Agreed.
Very interesting. So, I mean, you are putting up a very good palette of people around you. So that gives a very holistic, although I'm looking for more your personal experience on it, but it's
But
good
I
to
wouldn't
get
think
more.
my
Yeah.
experience is based on
Yes,
them.
them.
I am
That's what I said. That's
uh,
why I said you are bringing a very good palette of experience from around. So that makes it richer as an interaction. So I'm going to put you a penultimate question of today's interaction, and it's a hypothetical situation. Imagine a situation where most famous, known, influential architects of the country practicing are women architects. Because I will strongly say that right now in society more known architects are male architects for whatever reason. Either society is not recognizing, students don't recognize their own teachers as architects. When I go for public speaking to schools and I ask them, name 5 women architects, students struggle, really struggle. They don't even have the humility to just name their women teachers. They are looking for big names. So this hypothetical question is on a situation where the domination of female architects is in the city or in the country. So the question is, what do you think will be the change in the way cities, neighborhoods, buildings are built? What will be the change? If let's say we have 90% women architects who are well known and who are everywhere, do all kinds of things, what will be the change in the city?
Okay. I will counter that question with something which is very, how do you say? Anyways, I'll just ask that question again. The Prime Minister that we have to our country right now is not married. He's not a family man.
He's married, but he's not a family.
He's not a family man. Correct.
He's married.
That's right. Yes. He doesn't live with his family. He's not experienced being with a family, with children, with other things. He's not personally has those experiences. So yes, that correction was right. But has it changed the way in which what kind of policies are coming for women? What kind of policies are coming for children? What kind of policies are coming for persons who are not, of the year? I'm not saying that I am aligned or I'm not a fan of this current party or anything. It's not that. I really genuinely want to say that there are many times that it doesn't matter who you are and what your experiences have been. Sometimes we've had both mantra as well as the very benevolent Kaushalya and others also who are a part of the same story. They're both
Mm.
women. They both had two different personalities, right?
Yes.
So whether the world is going to be better or worse if suddenly everything is ruled
Different.
by
Different.
women.
We are
Huh,
looking
by
for
women,
difference.
correct. Difference, correct. Not whether better or worse, correct. So
Absolutely.
whether it will be different just because women are leading or just because it's a matriarchal setup rather than a patriarchal. I don't know whether
Okay.
if the Britishers never came to India and they never brought in industrialization, the way in which we know it, if the railways were never, kind of formed, would we be a developed nation in those sense, or rather, let's say, would we be a happy nation with all the
Our happiness index is very bad right now, by the way.
correct, exactly. That's what I'm bringing out. Like, would we still continue to have sati? Would we still continue with those traditions, or would there be an internal revolution which would come forward and say, "Hey, all of this is bullshit. Let us stop. Let's kind of change the way in which we are. Let's not follow religion. Maybe let's have a secular system or a country or whatever other things." So I don't want to give gender that importance. I want
Okay.
to give
Well,
people
fair
that
enough.
importance. I want to
Fair
give
enough.
people that importance, and I want to tell them that if we want to make a better world, we just have to understand others better. If you understand
Absolutely.
the position and you put yourself into the shoes of others and you kind of become a little more empathetic, be it towards humans, be it towards plants, animals, flora, fauna. Every time you're building on a plot or a site, you know that it could be the home of a mouse, the home of a snake,
Yes.
the home, like there's an entire ecosystem around that tree that
Absolutely.
you decided to cut. It was the house of a bird. The bird may not come to it every day. Maybe it would come only during nesting when it's laying
Mm.
eggs, right? And we don't understand, be it women or men, sometimes we don't understand that as a as a base requirement. And that is something that I want to respond to your question, that let's hope that at least in the future that we are going to have together, gender is not the reason for
Oh, absolutely.
better or worse, but all of us together, kind of grow in to understand one another better and hence come together as a better.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Honestly, speaking, I would like to live a day when we don't need to discuss gender.
Hmm.
But to reach that day, this kind of studies are required
Correct.
because we need to hammer to tell that there is a difference in the society. I'm
Correct.
very clear because you named Prime Minister, and I mean, we can discuss politics endlessly, probably outside this conversation. But where are the 33% women candidates who are nominated by each party? We are still not having it. So
Hmm.
unless and until these things are discussed, we will not reach a stage where there is gender equality. I
Hmm.
mean, yes, I am not affected at all by gender, by the way. I'm still doing that study because I feel there's a gap in the society, or
Hmm.
how to bridge that gap even by, by a hair thin margin, or by a small dot or pin dot,
Hmm.
pin sized intervention into the whole system. So there are changes required to arrive that state. I hope I live that day where we are just talking about human beings, because the profession is gender neutral. There is no gender in the profession. Architecture is just architecture. Architect is just architect. There is no he or she or even they for that matter. So definitely I would also like to live that day, and my effort is towards inching towards that day. Because right now it is all he. The whole Council of Architecture rules are written for he. The farmers' laws are written for he, where 70% laborers are farmers are women farmers. The whole construction industry is written for he, whereas 70% construction workers are women construction workers. Just to give you an idea, so this is why it is important for both men and women to talk about it to bring a change, you know. So good that you already gave some hints how things will change, because you were already talking about birds, you were talking about mouse, you were talking about trees and plants. And mind you, many a times when you're talking to a male counterpart, you will not hear these things. The change, I mean, see, as a researcher, I can see the difference how a woman is talking or a man will talk. I mean, you did not bring the point of economy, you did not bring the point of profit, and this itself is a difference in the outlook of how things are, you know. So that's interesting to understand from you. That brings me to the last question, which is very simple, and that's a message to younger generation. So when I'm saying younger generation, I am not discriminating any gender, because we want to reach there where there is no gender difference. But I will request you to give a message in two parts. One is what it is to be in the architecture profession, because as you know, people don't know. So through all of you, we want to tell people what is architecture for you, why people must join this profession. That's one part of the question. And the second part of the question is, what should youth do to really engender the profession? Because in my generation, of course,
So engender meaning?
engender means reduce the gender gap in the profession.
Okay.
So,
Nice. Okay.
so I may not have felt the gender problem, or I may have, you may not have felt, or you may have, but definitely we have to do something to change the pattern which is there in the society. We are privileged probably if we have not faced,
Exactly.
or we have suffered if we have faced. So that's different, but the message has to be more neutral. So I would like to hear your two part answer for the younger generation. Yeah, over to you.
Okay. So the first part of the question is, what is my message to people who want to join in architecture or the design discipline?
Yeah.
I just feel that, when you look at a movie, this message, I suppose, will go to laypersons and
Yes.
students not already into architecture.
Yes, it is for them, and also who are in architecture, what it is to be in the profession, what is there for the whole is help for them in future.
Okay, so there are two parts to it. The first thing is, I strongly believe that when you're talking about architecture, you have to if you look at life as a play, okay, and as architects who are designing the sets, or interior designers who are designing the sets of this play, you can not just influence form and function, which we generally talk about, but you can actually influence life and conversations. Whether I'm putting an L-shaped sofa or a U-shaped sofa layout changes the way in which my people are interacting.
Absolutely.
Whether I put just one. Now, whether I'm putting a TV in front of that sofa layout, or whether there's a flower pot or a balcony that you're facing when this layout is sitting, it changes your interactions, and hence it changes who you are as a person, because you're no longer looking at a screen, you're talking to peers, you're talking to friends, right? And I strongly, and that is the beauty of architecture, that is the beauty of interior design. So when you're creating any of these opportunities as architects, as interior designers, you're influencing the life of an individual. Every small line that you're drawing is changing the life experiences of an individual. Now, whether you're drawing the ramp at a good enough ratio that helps the person with wheelchair rake it up themselves, or whether it makes him or her ask for help. That, hey, this ramp is too steep. I cannot go on my own. Can you please help and support me? Right? Are these something as simple and trivial as we would think in our, हाँ बस ramp डाल दो, हाँ ठीक है इसका length इतना करो. But this is influencing the life of an individual, and that
Yes.
is something that we want the society to understand. This is the value that an architect brings on board, and hence an architect needs to be appreciated. And this is the value or the responsibility we want the architects to understand. That you're not just designing for aesthetics and beauty, you're actually creating experiences that will stay in people's minds forever. Like abhi Instagram aa gaya hai, so you are very like, हाँ ठीक है, photographs, यहाँ पे ये picture ready है, ये picture frame अच्छा है. So very aesthetically centered. But the beauty of architecture is in the experiences it allows.
Yes.
So that is my message to people, that there's underappreciation of architecture in the society.
Yes, that's the reason why we are asking this question.
Correct. And both the society as well as architects need to understand the power of good design as well as the responsibility of why it's important to give those good design. Yes. And the second question was?
It's about how the younger generation, what kind of small efforts the younger generation may take to engender the profession.
Okay. The profession right now, at least the leads and the heads of the practices that we see generally, like Mansee pointed out correctly, is very male dominated. It does have many men who are leading firms, who are leading practices. But those male practices also have a lot of women working under.
Yes.
There are also many female leaders who, by either consciously or just by the strength in their character, are attracting more stronger women to join them.
Yes.
Right? And I think the best way for us to engender architecture is first to just look at the profession as a baseline of experiences. That what is it like? For this to happen, it has to be twofold. First is how should the men react to it? How should the women react to it? How should persons of any other gender or persons who do not want to identify with gender react to it as well? And it's not something that can happen only within the fraternity. When you go on sites, and if these are not known contractors and known workers who know you as a woman architect, they would probably just shrug you off first because like, isko kya samajhta hai, is an attitude that is coming to you from construction workers. You could get angry at it and say, hey, listen to me. Or you could wow them with the knowledge that you have. And you have a conversation with them and say that I can sense this is happening in your mind right now. Try to put this aside and let us work towards this, because our final goal is not who is talking to you or what is the gender of the person who is talking to you, but about building this beautiful building. And like we brought out throughout our conversations so many times, negotiations, conversations, and just letting it out openly is something that I think is important for both the genders to
absolutely. I so much agree with you on this.
Engender the profession. And for men especially, is I've seen that there are not as many men who like to read as much as there are women who like to read. And what social media is doing right now, if you like a certain kind of content, it gives you more of that content.
The AI is working on us.
Yeah,
the AI is working on us.
The AI is working on you, and the AI is changing your experiences.
Absolutely.
Right? And then it will mold your personality, because you'll think, हाँ यही सही चल रहा है दुनिया में, because this is the experience that I am enjoying and the AI is feeding to me. So the reason why I insist reading is because it breaks you from that AI ka circle, And you
You
can
still stay human, huh? Not.
and you can choose who you want to listen to.
Mm,
You can choose who you want to talk about. And if possible, both genders. Okay, I'm not saying it's difficult for a man or it's easier for a woman or vice versa, like we generally say.
mm.
But I'm saying that just live the life of the other gender maybe one day and feel how the other person would be feeling, and you would automatically be a little more
More.
empathetic towards one another.
Absolutely.
And
That's a very good suggestion, actually. Live one day a week or month. I mean, I would suggest a week because that will be faster to reach where we wish to reach, engendering the profession. Even engendering the society is required, to be honest.
true. And as much as possible, I think, Mansi, the next set of questions that interviews that you're conducting, you could also invite men and ask these pointed
We do
questions to them.
wish to. We do wish to, but I wish to first attain my target of at least getting 100 women.
100 women, right,
Yes,
right.
then we will. Of course, we do have that intent. And in fact, my other research, which is happening on women in water, these are simultaneous two research I'm working on. We have already started inviting men after completing 50. So
Hmm.
we had 5 men after 50, just to get an understanding how they look at women in the profession.
No,
Because
because
water
when
is
you
even
pointed
more
out,
skewed,
now,
by the way. The profession
water.
of water is more skewed because that's where my main research lies. This is
Hmm.
not my main research area, but I have taken it as a passionate project.
Hmm.
It's really difficult to be a woman in the water sector, and especially for people like us who have been trying to, scream at the loudest of the voice that water is part of architecture. It has still not got across of my own profession. Forget about other places. Uh, so there also, it's a serious problem of patriarchy. You know, so we have started getting some men, and which I wish to do it in this as well, but we have
Hmm.
to take baby steps and
Right,
just
right.
keep
No,
focus
because
in the
you
research.
don't do it for others. You do it for
Hmm.
that person who is sitting in across the screen, having that interview with you and contemplating on their lives. Because you
Absolutely, that's the
probably
whole
so
idea.
many things that I never really gave importance to, and maybe this
That's why it is reflection. It's reflection.
Hmm, correct.
So, see, there are people who are affected or who may be consciously observing these things. I
Hmm,
recall you also said in the beginning that you are very observant person. Probably our interest of observations are different, and that's
hmm,
also quite likely.
hmm.
But as a researcher, you have to look at patterns, what's going on, and
Correct.
objectively,
Hmm.
objectively look at pattern. Okay, in the society, this is happening. Now, where would you like to intervene and bring a change? I mean, you are also in research, you know how things work.
Correct.
So we are trying to do it in this way. So you already gave a very good suggestion, but that brings an end to our conversation.
And
And
one
to
last
at
thing.
the end, yeah, so
One
I'm
last
coming
thing.
to it. If
One
you have
last
any questions for me, please ask me,
thing.
and also please convey your one last thing or many last things. I'm fine with it.
No, no, no. Just the one last thing that I want to say, both to men and women, to engender the profession, is to put the self aside, to put
Yes, very
ego
much
aside.
required. By the way, this is also very feministic thing. Huh?
Okay.
Let me tell you, theoretically.
Mm.
Theoretically.
Mm. Interesting. Mm.
See,
But
it's mothers are keeping themselves aside and they think about everybody else than themselves.
mm, no, not from that perspective. Keep the self aside in conversations.
Hmm. Yeah, of course, we should
Because
speak in
when we're
general.
talking about uh, opinions and facts and other things like that, now we generally bring in our ego.
Absolutely. That's
ये मेरा
important
डिजाइन
to
है,
keep
ये
it
ऐसे ही
aside.
किया, ये वैसे ही किया. And then we have personalities, and then
Hmm.
some personalities are strong, some
And
personalities are
conflicts.
submissive, right? And it can happen to any of the genders. But if you really want a good, well balanced, inclusive society, then you just have to keep yourself aside and be a little more empathetic.
And for collective work, that is extremely important because we all have to work together towards some goal which we have set together. So that's important. That's
Correct.
extremely important. So thank you so much. If you have any other question or suggestion, now is the time before I give the formal vote of thanks to you. Do you have any questions for me?
No, no, no.
No?
It
Yeah.
has
Thank
been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
to
And I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And I see that you could really open your heart out and share your experiences. And it is really a wonderful conversation to cherish. Honestly speaking, I've been enjoying and learning so much from all of you while I'm listening to all of you. And I also realized that listening is so important to as part of learning, you know. So it's been wonderful for me to have this communication, and I hope you also enjoyed interacting. And I do hope that we will have more opportunities to talk about many different things of life, experiences particularly, and also try to explore some things which we can work together when we know a little bit more about each other, because we met for the first time as well. So
yeah.
thank you so much, Sonam, and thanks a lot for your time and patience, and of course, opening your heart out to us. Thank you so much.